Hello, how are you doing? As you're hopping on, please say hello. All the things, let me know how's your weather going. You know what I'm saying? Especially if you have never seen a video of mine before, welcome. I'm glad you're here. If you have seen one of my videos before, you know I'm a little kooky, I'm a little crazy. We're friends. I would hope you say hello. So let me know how things are going for you. We got like a weird cold front in here in Texas. Yesterday morning at rehearsal, it was 58 degrees, and today it's like 60 something. So yeah, it's pretty weird. So anyways, hello, my name is Ashton Seneca. I am a marching fundamental specialist, leadership clinician, and mindset performance coach. All right, today we're going to talk about facial expressions because this is actually, so I have a free group on Facebook called Leadership and Marching Band Community. And I posted there, asked them a question. I was like, you know what? What are some things that your students struggle with that you want me to talk about? And so somebody said facial expressions. And I was like, yes, let's talk about this. Let's talk about facial expressions, especially with wind players. So when I started looking at, like, I do these like online dance things from this website called Steezy. So, and here's what happens, because I can see it in my videos and I have to be really mindful of it. Like if I like record myself doing the choreography or whatever, I look and my face is like this. Because this right here is my thinking face. So oftentimes what we're getting from our wind players specifically is we're getting their thinking face. That's why sometimes they're like, whatever that is, because that's their thinking face, okay? So something that's really important to understand about choreography, and they actually said this on Steezy, and I was like, yes, of course, is that, and I know I'm guilty of this, is we're like, okay, we're going to teach them the choreography. Okay, now we need to, like, why do they look like that? We need to get their facial expressions going. No, it's not choreography and then facial expressions. It's choreography and facial expressions. Think of it this way. When we go into sight reading, it's not just looking at the music and playing it correctly. It's playing it correctly with a good sound. Right? So we need to be looking at it as we have to teach them choreography and the facial expressions. Because if not, we're going to get their thinking face. Okay? So a couple things that are going to be really helpful is, especially if we have a dance person or a color guard person that is teaching the choreography, before they teach it to them, have that person perform the choreography with the music, with facial expressions that go along with it, so that they can see it and they understand it. Because especially if their first experience being around the dance world or doing body movement is their freshman year of high school marching band, then they may have never seen what it looks like for somebody to dance and do dance with their facial expressions matching it. Okay? So when we're teaching them the choreography, let's make sure that they also understand too, like, this is the facial expressions we want. So number one, the person, if it's a dance person doing it, have them perform the choreography for them with facial expressions so they get an idea of it. Number two, talk to them about what the characterization is of whatever they're performing. Right? So, like, are they doing something that is maybe, off the top of my head, like Elsa's procession to the cathedral? If they were playing that on the field, that's very elegant. That's very just like royal, like that type of stuff. Or are you guys doing something that's really aggressive? And I can't think of the year, with the year that Carolina Crown did Beast, right? So you're talking about aggressive, animalistic, things like that. So are we talking about it? Because another thing that can be really scary is being given too many options. So for example, if we're like, okay, this section right here is aggressive, so just make an aggressive face. What? What do you mean? What do you mean? Think about any time that you've ever been in that position. Like, write your opinion on this. Articulation. Write about articulation. Okay, do you mean articulation in general? Like, how I teach articulation, or do you mean like the part of their, like, what about articulation do you mean? So for our students, if we're like, okay, be aggressive here, and they're like, what? Can you give me a little bit more clues to this? So something that can be helpful is maybe showing them videos, for example. If I want aggressive and animalistic, I'm going to go show them the performance, like the multicam performance video of Crown's Beast, right? If I want something that is perhaps, I'm trying to think, Like the kids with Blue Coats, when they did in 2019, they did the show The Blue Coats, which was a lot of Beatles and really fun and outgoing things. If you put that on multicam, they're going to have a lot of things where, as odd as it sounds, like you could talk to them about like party scenes and stuff being like really big and open. Did I feel stupid just doing that? Yes. But I think it's really beautiful for us to, as the directors, to be portraying those types of facial expressions, because if we feel open and vulnerable and kind of dumb doing those things, then they're going to feel that way too. So we can help to normalize that facial expressions are just what we do by us like kind of mimicking those things. The person that's teaching the dancer person, and I will say too, if a dancer person is a person that teaches choreography and is doing the facial expressions, please get out there and do it with the students. Because it normalizes things even more to see that the people like, because oftentimes, and tell me if maybe this is not y'all, but I know with most of the directors I've ever worked with, the kids are always like nervous to talk to us, and for whatever reason we're intimidating. Like, drop me some hearts and tell me, is that you? Because that's definitely me. Is they're like, but so-and-so is intimidating, but you're kind of intimidating. So when they see us out there with them, like doing this choreography with them and doing these facial expressions with them, it breaks down a barrier and it humanizes us, and it normalizes like the expectation is we're trying to do this. We're all going to feel dumb and silly and stupid doing it, but we're all going to try it and do it because this is just what we do. So talk to them like, what is the characterizations? Like give them some examples, show them. Okay, like whether it's with body language, what we're doing with our chin and our head, like what are the expressions that go along with being a royal, like doing something elegant and royal? What are the expressions that go along with something that is aggressive and animalistic? What are the expressions we want with something that is bubbly and fun and open, right? Like maybe you're doing like a toy, like childlike type thing. So like show them childlike faces, right? So limit the amount of choices we're giving them when we say, give me something aggressive. Because if they've never done this before, that's going to be really overwhelming. There's way too many options. Just like we as adults were like, can you be a little more specific what you want with that? That reaction is from us as adults. Can you be a little more specific? Like, what exactly do you want from me? The kids are thinking the same thing. So showing them what we're talking about, giving them some different examples to choose from, because remember, we're going back to, so if this is my process, I'm going to first talk about what is the character of this? What is the character? What does this look like? What does this feel like? Cool. All right. Then I'm going to have that dancer person show them this choreography that they're about to learn with the music, with facial expressions. So they're like, we just talked about this. Because remember, we have 3 types of learner, kinesthetic, auditory, and visual. So the auditory kids, we're going to talk about it. We're going to show it to them. Then we have that person do the choreography with the facial expressions, right? So we've now covered our visual and our kinesthetic learners. And then we're going to have them learn the facial expressions and the choreography at the same time. So it's all one big thing. If we're making a pie and we leave something out, well, then we have to go back and restart over. We don't want to restart over. So talk about what the characterization is. Let them see somebody performing it. Even showing them videos of other drum corps and wind players. I will say try to keep to showing them wind players. If we're showing them dancers, like you could show them dancer ones to give them an idea of facials to choose from. But it's going to be really helpful to show them wind players, drum corps people, people conducting ensembles, showing them facial expressions from that perspective, because it's easy for a wind player to assume that I'm watching this video of a dancer and a color guard person, but of course it's easy for them. So show them dancer and color guard people, but also show them wind players for examples. And then as we're learning the choreography, I'm going to have them also doing the facial expressions along with it. And sometimes it may be even as simple as like, okay, guys, we really don't want a thinking face here. So we don't want our choreography like, right? Because that's a kid's, they're either like this, doing choreography, or they're like, if they're like me, then they're like thinking really hard on it. You know what I'm saying? So say like, okay, here's 5 faces to choose from. Maybe they don't change their face the entire time, but at least they have 5 faces where they can be like, whatever. Like if you were to go look on TikTok and people have like all these choreographies that they're doing and they're like have the facial expressions with it, they have practiced it with the facial expressions. And with our wind players, it can't be something where we're just like throw them in the deep end. You know the choreography, just throw facial expressions in there. It's not that easy. And if you think that I'm crazy, because I know it's easy, what? It's just a facial expression, just like smile or whatever in it. It's not that easy. It's not that easy to wipe off that. Going back to our sight reading example, right? If we teach them the sight reading, so say for example, I'm prepping for concert and sight reading, and everything leading up to it, I've only cared about notes and rhythms, and I haven't talked about tone quality at all. Then all of a sudden we get to contest day, and I'm like, all right, y'all, make sure the tone quality is good too. And they've now created this habit of tone quality is not something they think about. They just think about the notes and rhythms. It's the same thing with choreography. If we're not teaching and talking about facial expressions from the day one of the choreography, then that means we've taught them the choreography, and now like, hey, add in facial expressions. Well, I haven't been thinking about that the whole time. So it's all rolled into one. They have to be thinking about facial expressions and choreography from day one. So give them first talk about the character and the style you want. Give them examples of the facial expressions. Show them videos of people doing that type of facial expressions. When they learn the choreography, have someone perform it for them first with those facial expressions. And then as they're learning it, maybe give them some to choose from, or be like, hey, let's everyone see the first 8 counts. All right, we need some more of this with facial expressions, right? And where's I going with this? Always make sure they're doing the facial expressions. If we're like, okay, everybody, let's do in the drill. So I say I'm at rehearsal and I'm like, all right, everybody here, let's do letter A to B. We're marching and playing and moving and doing letter A to B. They better be rocking those facial expressions out for me all the time, nonstop, because I want it to become habit. Just like in sight reading, they're paying attention to the notes and rhythms and locking that in, but also with a good tone quality. But the only way we have that good tone quality is we've been talking about it since day one. So think of it as facial expressions being tone quality. It's from day one. We don't teach choreography. We don't teach sight reading and then go back and say, okay, now use a good tone. They use a good tone while learning notes and rhythms. So they're doing facial expressions while learning choreography. Okay? Because we don't want their thinking face. That's what you're seeing. If you're like, man, my kids have these like stone-faced expressions when they're doing choreography, it's because it's their thinking face. And since day one of band in 6th grade, their face hasn't mattered because their instrument has been on their face, and now we're taking it away, and they're like, what? Hold up. Okay? So give them, don't just say be aggressive. Give them some options and show them what aggression can look like with facial expressions. Because for someone like me, I will say, if you're like, hey, give us an angry, aggressive face, I can give you that. Because my natural resting face is RBF. So I can give you I'm not shy at all. I can give you an aggressive face. But if you're like, hey, give me this really elegant, dainty thing, I got to think about it for a second, and I would really appreciate it if you gave me some options. You know what I'm saying? So give them, talk about the character from the beginning. And I know it may too, because some people may not care about facial expressions with it. And that's totally fine. Facial expressions are not required. This is just simply something that was requested. How do I get my students to help with it? How can I help them with this? How can I get them to do better with this? Now, my perspective is, from the top of the box. The judges way up there can't see the facial expressions. However, we're talking about when we have these students performing their marching show, we want them 100% fully invested in it. So if that instrument is off their mouth, and especially if they're not wearing a shako and their face is exposed, I want them 100% involved in this thing, including the facial expressions they do. There was one time where we had this intro leading into the ballad. It was very playful and very childlike. And I was like, all right, I want you to show me, when you come out for the set, I want you to show me as if you are on a playground in kindergarten, goofing with your friends and joking around and having fun with it. I want everything, the entire body, and I want to see your faces with it too. And I want it to be big and huge, because remember, people way up there, they've got to see this too. So sure enough, they come out there, and you can see it on their faces too, because it was about the side of the field that I was on was all the low brass. And you could see it on their faces. They're like, oh, we're about to be crazy. And I'm up here I hope they're crazy. Watch this. And they're skipping, and they're and high-fiving their friends. And they get to the end of the rep. So their faces are right? And I kind of gave them, I said, be like a kid, when you're in elementary school, on the playground, goofing with your friends, lots of smiles and big faces and big motions, and be very, like, that's what we mean by childlike. So I gave them a visual, right? They're like, okay. So you could see it on their faces when they got done being really silly and goofy and the rep was over and they were all looking at me like, watch, she's about to get on our cases. And I was like, hey, that was fun. I loved you guys' faces. That was great. Okay. Now with the motions, and then I gave them some feedback on it. So another piece to this puzzle is when they get out there and try these things, we need to give them the space for trial and error. We can't immediately jump in there because here's what I saw happen too. They did the rep again and then immediately over the speaker. So then I was like solidifying, it's trial and error, right? I'm trying to like compassionately and kindly, we're figuring out what it feels like to them and what I want, right? Because I will tell you, it's easier for them to go bigger and me be like, a little less than that. So sure enough, then over the speaker comes the whole, what are y'all doing? You look so goofy over there. You want to know what happened? The kids immediately shut down and they were not willing to try anything else because they were like, they were trying this that I was doing because I want them to be big and it's easier for me to make it smaller than for me to be like bigger, bigger, bigger. Like I hate that. Bigger, bigger, bigger. No. Okay. So me, that's like, hey, okay, I'm here for it. All right. Now I noticed that this type of stuff was a little bit too much and this was a little bit too much. So let's try something else here. And I love the facial expressions. Keep doing that. And they were willing to try it again. They were like, okay, cool. All right. All right. But the second that over the box, somebody goes, hey, you guys are being way too silly with that. That is way too much. I was on the field and I immediately watched their body language like they had been doing this with me and trying it and going for it. And then immediately when that came from the box, they were all like, and I'm telling you, their feelings were really hurt. When we're asking them to do facial expressions and to do things bigger and more full out, we have to understand and realize this is a very vulnerable position that they're coming from. They're trying this, and we have to normalize that this is what we do. It's a trial and error thing. That instead of coming for them aggressively when they don't do it right, okay, that wasn't what we wanted. Instead, like, hey, I really appreciate the energy and effort, y'all. Thank you. I really loved when so-and-so did this. I didn't really care much for these things. I felt like it didn't quite fit the character with this, okay? So I didn't care much for this, this, and this, but I really loved this, 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 and this. So let's try it again and see what we have. Trial and error is part of choreography and facial expressions. That's part of it. I know that we get used to that the students know how to play something. Like if they're looking at a march, they've been playing marches since 6th grade. So even the freshmen, like they get how to do a march right away. So when we're in sight reading, we could say, this is march like, and they get it right away. But when we get over to talking about facial expressions and we're like, this is aggressive. Well, some of the students are not aggressive personalities. Me, I'm aggressive, so I know what you're talking about, but not everyone does. So we need to view facial expressions as when we're like back in 6th and 7th grade and we're talking about marches and we're like, hey, that was very close. It wasn't quite it. Here's the adjustment to make and let's try it again. Okay? So in order to really get these facial expressions going and get it locked in with it, number one, like talk to them about the characterization. Like, what are they doing? And you know what? Another thing you could do is, what if you made a child appropriate, school appropriate playlist of music like that, and you have the kids go home and practice on their own facial expressions with that song. Like if it's a really bubbly song, like have them practice at home with it on their own, videotaping themselves so they can see what they do. Give them a list of aggressive pieces, right? Like Rite of Spring is real crazy, whatever. Give them some playlists so they can practice it at home. Okay? But show them, like, talk about the characterization. What is the character you're wanting from that song, from that moment in the show? What is the character you're wanting? What is the vibe that we're wanting to produce from this? And then show them. So number two, show them whether it is videos of drum corps and wind players that are doing that style and vibe you're wanting, or it's pictures. Also have the person teaching the choreography teach it to them with facial expressions. Perform it for them with facial expressions so they can see what it's supposed to look like. Okay, so what are we on? Number 3 or 4, whatever. We move on to teaching it. Teach it with facial expressions, but don't give them too many choices. We're aggressive, so let's narrow it down to like 5 to 10 different faces we can use. Because if we don't start with choreography plus facial expressions, then you're going to get their thinking face. And that's what we're seeing. So just like with sight reading, we teach notes and rhythms with a good sound. We teach choreography with facial expressions. Okay? And then after that, anytime they're repping that, the facial expressions are just part of it. Facial expressions, they just go along with it anyways. You know what I'm saying? That's why, like, even in rehearsals, like, so the wind players are out there and they'll hear the color guard people of their box. They're like, come on, I need to see your faces up here. We need to have that same, we need to keep that same energy with our wind players when they're doing the choreography. Come on, guys, I need to see faces up here, right? And then also realize trial and error. Like, in order to normalize this and for them to feel comfortable doing these facial expressions, trial and error. Give them grace, okay? Like, we tried it, and instead of freaking out and telling them that was awful or crazy or whatever, because, again, it's easier for them to go big and crazy on this and us, like, modify it and whittle it down than it is for us to try to add something to it, right? So we want them to go big and crazy. So when they go big and crazy, we can't slap them down and be ugly and aggressive. Okay? When they try it, we're like, hey, I really like this, this, and this. I didn't care much for this, this, and this. Let's try it again. That's how we can normalize that and make them comfortable with it, okay? And if we just comfort them and slap them on the face when they try it and we're like, no, absolutely not, they're going to shut down. Because this is a very vulnerable thing to make facial expressions to go with it. Because especially if we're doing it big enough, then we're going to feel stupid. They're going to feel stupid. And so if we comfort them and slap them in the face with our commentary, then that, like, they're just going to shut down. Okay? So don't comfort them with when they, like, if they mess up or whatever, just tell them, like, I really love that so-and-so did this, so-and-so did this. I love this facial expression. This was amazing. This was great. I think we can do a better job because I didn't really care much for this, 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 and this because I thought it wasn't quite within the vibe or the character or for whatever reason. So let's try it again. Okay, I like this, 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 and this. That was that was way closer to it. Yes, I didn't care much for these things. Let's try it again because it's trial and error. Choreography and facial expressions are trial and error. More so than, and I think sometimes for us as band directors, we forget that trial and error part because when it comes time for us to do marching and playing, so if they're doing their drill, there's not as much give in that. We're like, there's not really a trial and error. Like if we teach them page 1, oh, I didn't like that. Let's do it. Let's rewrite page 1. That's not necessarily normal. But we have to realize with choreography and facial expressions, because it's new for a lot of our students, right? There's going to be more trial and error with choreography and facial expressions, especially if we're giving the kids free reign with facial expressions. If you don't want to do trial and error, then teach the choreography exactly how you want it and assign them facial expressions. Assign it to them if you don't want the trial and error. But some people, like if you want the students to have the courage to try it themselves, then we need to understand it's going to be a trial and error as they're figuring out what exactly it is we want. Okay? So, talk to them about what the character and vibe is of the piece so that they understand. Show them videos, pictures of wind players and other people make like in that vibe, how they do. Don't give them too many options for facial expressions. Narrow it down. Give them like 5 to 10 to choose from. Teach the choreography and facial expressions at the same time so that it's all rolled into one and we're not getting their thinking faces. And then trial and error. Give them, like, normalize this is what we do. Give them grace to make mistakes and keep trying it so that you're continuously giving them feedback until they figure out, like, this is what I want. And when they get what you want, freak out over it. Yes, I love that. Lock that in, that facial expression. Yes, yes, yes. Make a big deal out of it. And then they'll be like, eee. And they'll keep doing that because they want to know when it's right. All right? So are there any questions about it? Is there anything that I didn't cover? Okay? So that's mine with it. This video, I actually was going to record for my Basics in a Box course, and so I decided to do it live so you guys could be on here and watch it with me. So this video is going to be going in my Basics in a Box online marching fundamentals course that it is literally all the strategy and process and procedures that I have from teaching posture through horn carriage, through all the marching fundamentals, teaching drill, and also dance basics. That's why this video is going in there because there are videos on dance basics in Basics in a Box as well. So this is the kind of tips that you get in there along with strategy and process and procedure because honestly, I love marching fundamentals and I feel like I have come up with a strategy that is proven by me and also my other clients that have taken it as well. I have one client that went from getting last place at contests to the very next season, went home with 5 different trophies just from the process and procedures in my Basics in a Box course. So if that's something you're interested in and you would like to raise the standard on your band's visual program, then just send me a message and I'll get you some more information on Basics in a Box, because that is my online marching fundamentals program and I'm really proud of it and I really love it so much and it's my heart and soul. All right, friends, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I'm going to get this all edited and added to my Basics in a Box course. I hope you guys have a great, incredible rest of your weekend. Take care of yourselves. Find some time for like rest and play and all the good and fun things, all right? Leave work and work. Have fun at home. You know what I'm saying? I love you guys and have a great rest of your weekend. Bye, friends.